what is going to happen when San Diegans do go back to work? Attorney Janice Brown from the Brown Law Group is on the phone answering our big employment questions. Good morning, Janice.
Good morning.
All right, the fact that we are in uncharted water, does anyone really know how it's going to play out when we do finally flip the switch back on?
No, no one knows that. I mean, that's part of what the challenge is, because businesses have to assess risk. And we're assessing risk in an environment where no one's been able to predict what's going to happen. We're relying upon the government, our health officials, business people. They're going to have enough money to buy things once the companies open up. So no, people can guess, and that's what we're going to be doing here, is trying to make educated guesses, but we really don't know what's going to happen.
Well, I'm sure your guesses are going to be better than mine. So what are employers going to have to consider when, I mean, a lot of folks are just going to want to keep working from home. Is that going to be an issue, do you think, going forward?
You know, I think that's going to be really interesting. I started working from home. I'm a lawyer with my own firm, and if you'd have asked me if I wanted to work from home, I would have told you no. But what I think has happened is people have found that there are ways to work from home that are probably more efficient and more productive. So I do think there's going to be a psychological shift for a lot of people to think they don't need as much real estate than they do have. So that's going to impact the commercial real estate market, which I think is already beginning to feel some of the pull on that.
Right. Well, not everyone has the option of working at home. And for those that have to go into the workplaces, is there going to be liability issues? I mean, as far as, is it going to be on the employer to make sure their employees don't contract COVID-19?
Well, see, that's a really difficult issue that's really being played out right now with meatpacking companies throughout the United States. Because what's happening is the meatpacking people are saying, if you make it so that people can't work, our food sources are going to dry up. And so right now in some states, not in California yet, but in some states in the Midwest, where they have meatpacking plants, the employers are seeking to be exempt from liability for people who come back to work and get COVID. Now, that hasn't happened here. There are things you can do when you hear people do have COVID. The laws have relaxed where you could ask people privacy questions about their health where you couldn't before. So if somebody looks sick, you can send them home. And those kinds of things can occur now where they couldn't happen in the past. So that issue about how employers can escape liability is one that's really a significant issue, but hasn't been tested yet by the court.
Yeah, that's going to be a big one. And so is like taking sick time. Say if you go on a vacation overseas when this all is said and done, and your co-workers are going to want you to be in quarantine for another 2 weeks after your week-long vacation. I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but there's going to be a lot of confusion as it relates to sick time, won't there be?
Well, there's a ton of confusion already. Because on top of what the state laws require for sick time, then this new CARES Act, Family First Act, added additional issues on for exactly the same thing that you said. Let's say somebody has COVID but doesn't have symptoms. And, you know, the employer can say, wait a minute, you can't come back for 2 weeks. And so how do you pay that employee? Well, that is what the federal law says. We have to pay that money. Well, if you're a small business, bigger businesses may be able to absorb it a little better. But if you're a small business, there are some ways that you can say, hey, I can't afford this, and you can apply to get some exemptions. But that's another headache that we don't really know is how it's going to work out, because you want your employees to be well, but you don't want your employees to make other people, your customers and their colleagues, ill.
All right, so let's look at it from the other side of the fence then. Say you're an employee that your workplace is opening up, they want you to come back to work, but you don't feel like it's safe. Are you forced to go back to work?
Well, there are some places in the Midwest that are saying that. We haven't had that yet in California. There are laws under OSHA that say that if an employee feels that their workplace isn't safe, that they can protest. And in California right now, no one said if you don't show up for work, you can't get unemployment. That's the battle that's happening right now. But right now in California, if the employees don't feel the workplace is safe, they can still collect unemployment. That may change.
All right, so I'm asking you to pull out your crystal ball and tell me how this is all going to play out. I know a lot of us are just kind of with fingers crossed saying it's going to find its way. Are you as comfortable with that notion as maybe others are?
Well, I think I go back to what your prior speaker said. There are some industries that have become more innovative. So there are people who are selling things that they typically didn't do in different ways. More people are using online. More people are using FaceTime to sell products. So I do think there's going to be innovation. But I do think there's going to be a certain amount of bars and restaurants and eateries that may not have the economic strength to come back. So that's the sad part of this. And I think the tourism industry is going to take a hit. But when it comes back, it's going to come back like a vengeance. Remember the days at the beach that were open up for a few days?
Yep.
Everybody showed up. So I'm hopeful that people will show up again in San Diego once we get back to better days.
All right. You know, that's an optimistic note that we should end on. Thank you for your time. I look forward to our next conversation.
Me too. Take care.
All right, Janice Brown from the Janice Brown Law Firm there.